call me Nefishiba.
Call the person by their names if you know their names. And if you don't know their names, ask. I recall when I was growing up, disability was not a word. Most persons who had varying impairments, people used to call them, even today, I'll use this one. They call persons with one hand or one foot one-y. And they call persons who are deaf the D word, which I will not say. The Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities and the Disabilities Act push forward that you put the person first. So I know sometimes we love to say the disabled man. He is a man first and foremost. And so I know too that some members of the disability community, they don't mind. But if we want to be politically correct, just remember it's a person first.
I know many of our children and youths and even adults, they face labeling in their communities. And one of the derogatory terms that people would use to describe them is that you're retarded or you're retarded. And those are terms that, you know, emotionally, they hurt persons with intellectual disability because you are seeing the person with a condition and not the person.
I am Hannah Kay.
They are also referred to as handicapped.
Don't call me that.
Don't call me that.
But we all know that what we refer to as a handicap is a barrier that you place. It can be a physical barrier, it can be an attitudinal barrier that you place on the person, you know, but the person is not a handicap. Anybody with a disability is a person first. And so you address the person. Do you, the tall person? No. You would call the person by him or her, by his or her name. So address the persons by their names.
You might say that, but the person is deaf, I can't sign. Ask them, maybe they can write, or maybe they can lip it, you know, and you figure it out together. Or if someone is in the space, they can maybe tell you, but ask. It's always nice to ask. And people who are blind are not necessarily deaf. So we do not need to shout and, you know, scream if it's a person who is blind. They can hear and they can speak.
It's a challenge, but for most persons will find the term visually impaired acceptable. People have many ways of referring to persons who are blind, which, you know, we in the blind community will find quite derogatory, right? There are terms that people use, you know, sometimes, you know, the tease of the other children, for example, you know, referring to them as bat or blind bat, or blinky, or cast eye, or, you know, those terms obviously are not acceptable terms and are you know, not terms of endearment at all.
I recently went to a function and the question was asked in the room, what do you think, what are the words that come to mind when you hear the word deaf? And everybody, you know, in the audience sought to say, no hearing, discriminated against, and all those kinds of words. And the deaf person said, what about champion? What about an achiever? What about a motivator? What about those positive words that we refer to others in society as? People with disabilities are those too. And so if we begin there, no, you do not have to pay money to change an attitude. An attitude is a decision. And so if Jamaicans, out of understanding that people with disabilities are people and they have capabilities, abilities like everybody else, then I think that will be a humongous achievement, because it will then have a ripple effect on everything else that happens in society.
We are just like you. We have the same needs. We do the same things. We work. We have families. We cook. We wash. We clean. We do all the same things. We are not different. It means that when you're thinking of persons who are blind or visually impaired, think of us as, your brother, your sister. The same things that you need, the same things that you want, respect, the need for autonomy, those are the same things that we want.
I know a lot of persons might say, but that is what they are. And I would say, no, that is not what they are. The disability might be part of their person, but they are not their disability. The disability is a condition. And so all the other derogatory words that are utilized, if we put ourselves in the position, recognizing that disability is no respecter of persons, whether class or socioeconomic status, color, disability has no bias. And so in these days when we have those beautiful roads and we drive on them at high speeds and we can end up in accidents, a disability is a second away.